Welcome to the Theory of DFS podcast. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blenderhead, Blender HD on Twitter. I'm the co-author of The Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports. It's a 15-hour audio DFS masterclass teaching you about the ins and outs of the game theory of DFS. It applies to any sport. NBA is coming up right now, right? We got NFL closing down. MLB will be starting up. MMA is coming back. PGA. It applies to it all. It's the math. All you need is kind of high school math and learning the concepts of how to play DFS, regardless is if you even watch the games. And I know Eric, you're a big NBA fan. Do you find it abhorrent that during NBA DFS season, that outside of maybe like the late West Coast game or some island game, that I'm quite possibly quote watching the games by the text play-by-play.
Oh my God, yes. What is wrong with you? Why? How? So you're the one sitting there, like, are you sitting with your wife or something on the couch and she's got like some movie or show on and you're just like refresh, refresh,
I'm
refresh, or
typically in
how
my
are you?
office. I'm a lot of times my wife works at night, so I'm in my office. And
Ah,
and like for baseball, see, it's like for baseball, I could use MLB TV and then put
hmm
up like two browsers and have 8 games going at once. But baseball is the type of sport where like, oh, there's my batter. Okay, I'm gonna wait. Oh, what happened in this game? Basketball, things are going back and forth. That I'm more
right.
likely to use like DK Live, and it just shows
Mm.
like all the plays and all the points, and I just look at that and I go, oh, okay, that guy hit a three. He's on it. This small forward is really, heating up in the first half. It's like maybe if I'm stacking a game, if like I have very much interest in one game, maybe I'll put that on. And then
hmm
it comes down to like the late West Coast games. There's usually, maybe one,
One
two,
or two, yeah.
right? And then that's when I go to the couch, at 10 o'clock, 10:30, put on NBA TV or NBA League Pass. And a lot of times I fall asleep.
Yeah, see, I do think, NBA is like DFS in general has gotten to where it's not like you really need to watch the games anyway with projections and everything like that. But NBA being the in theory easiest to project. The projections are the most accurate within a range that you don't really need to watch it. I'm just like a huge basketball fan, and I do actually think there are little things in NBA is so much more nuanced of a fantasy sport than anyone like ever gives it credit for. So I actually really enjoy watching, and like it's kind of like when we talked about late swap. To me, we talked about late swap being something that what one out of 20 times it works and it saves your bacon, and you make money off of it, or you win a tournament. It's so rare that it actually like some suboptimal swap works. But like I've found over the years that watching, you just pick up on little things here and there that like maybe once a year, twice a year, it pays off. You're like, they did that when when they played Giannis, they did this little thing, and whatever, just little things that have helped me. It's mostly meaningless. It's mostly just entertainment. But
I
basketball
picked that up,
is
but no, I want to push back a little. I picked that up even on the text play-by-play of like
yeah.
who's in foul trouble. Oh, this guy
hmm
came out early, and then they put in another guy. I'm like, oh, and I just visualize the court and go, oh, they're probably just playing matchups. They're playing small now
hmm
because the other team doesn't have their big center on the court. And for all the times that I missed that, a lot of times in the morning, if I had no interest in a game or something and some weird thing, outlier score happens, like I'll just go into Court IQ, a game flow
Yep.
tracker and just look and go like what happened. Like if I didn't know that last night John Morant got injured, I'd be like, why did Tyus Jones put up that big of a score? Like I can visualize in my head, this is what, without even looking, go, the only reason that this guy put up a big score is probably someone got injured or someone got hot or something like that. But then I could always just look at the game flow tracker and see it's like, oh, okay, that happened in that instance. And a lot of people that are game log watching, they look at a game log and they go, oh, well, he got 38 minutes last game. Or and the opposite way also. They look at the past two games and it's like 24
Yeah.
24 and they're like, no, it's two blowouts. The guy didn't see the last 7 minutes of the game. Like that's normally a 31 per point, 31-minute player. So like, yeah, I do I have to watch the games to know that? No, but
Yeah, not necessarily. No.
I still have to pay attention to some extent.
Right. Same, definitely same concept. So yeah, I don't know that you necessarily need to even watch the games, but there is so much of that like context and nuance to basketball because it's so different, right? There's rotations, like the quarterback is in on every play for an NFL team, and wide receivers kind of typically are defenses, are pretty much the same. There's so much of this additional context to NBA that I really enjoy. Like once we get to this time of the year, NFL is winding down, thank God. We get to NBA that I really start to like enjoy some of those little nuanced things because I think the advantages in spotting where the field might be wrong about how they're thinking about somebody, or where even early in the season where the logic behind the projections might be wrong. Maybe they're just too low on a guy's rates, or they're too low on a guy's minutes, or whatever. There's more variance in that early, and we're 2 months from now, like everything's going to be pretty fine tuned. But right now, especially, a little bit of just new sport, new season excitement. But I find it like more fun. Like I really enjoy like sitting down and like digging into a slate and looking at the rotations and looking at why did this guy only play 21 minutes? Why did this? How the hell did this guy put up 40 fantasy points? Oh well, maybe he was playing so and so, right? So like another like little thing, understanding, listening to smart people who know basketball or following basketball. Like if a particular team, like the Heat were running a zone for like all of the playoffs, right? That changes things for how an offense is going to interact with that zone. The Bucks play a very interesting style of defense where they really protect the rim and give up 3-pointers. So like knowing those little things, like, oh, that's why, Duncan Robinson hit 8 threes, right? Because he's wide open all the time and he's an awesome shooter. But against somebody else, that might not matter. But his game log looks awesome because he just scored 40 fantasy points. Just all those little contextual things early in the season, I think are just fun to talk about. And some of them are edges and some of them are meaningless, but trying to spot that, I think, is a lot of fun to NBA.
Right. I'm used to that in soccer, like where projections, like soccer projections are similar to like MMA or PGA type of projections where the median is not a great representation when like most of the players, like the goal and assist odds represent like 30 to 40% of their projection. And that's like a home run in baseball. Like either they hit one or they don't hit one. So you'll see a guy with a 10-point median projection and it's like they'll rarely get 10 points. They'll get 2 or they're going to get 14. Yet another guy with a 10-point projection is someone that doesn't score many goals but gets a lot of crosses and a lot of free kicks and a lot of tackles. And so that's more reliable for cash games. But the watching the games thing compared to the projections are not diametrically opposed to one another. I had this conversation in RotoGrinders Discord. Obviously, when someone's like, "Oh, projections are worthless," I watch the games. I have to come out and I have to explain. Like, it's typically from someone that doesn't understand what a projection model is. First off, you have to input things to begin with, right? The projection model, all it's doing is saying based on your inputs and the variables that are predictive. Like, but you have to give it minutes. If you're allocating 240 minutes to a basketball game, the modeling isn't going to do it. You have to do it. You have to put in and go, well, if so and so, like we always see, you talked about it previous podcast about, a guy that's normally playing on the second unit comes in and then plays on the first unit, like his usage rate goes down. You can't just take his second unit usage rate and superimpose it and its will on the first team. So you have to change this, or whoever's behind the projections that you use has to change this type of thing. And then you put in the minutes, and the difference between, I'm allocating minutes so this guy gets 32. Well, that's kind of like his median. Like, it's not like, he's going to get 32. It's like, no, well, he's going to get somewhere between 28 and 34. Right? Because there are outcomes where it's a blowout. There's an outcome where he's shooting hot from the 3-point line, so the coach leaves him in for an extra 2 or 3 minutes. There's a lot of leeway there, and especially in basketball projections where you have a slate where, there could be 20 players within, $1,000 range of each other that project between 3 or 4 points of each other. Like 1 or 2 minutes could dramatically change. If you ranked 1 to 20 in that range, currently right now, based on the median, you could rank it 1 to 20, but you change 1 minute here and there, and the whole rank, the first guy goes to fifth, the sixth guy goes to second, the 20th guy goes to 12th. And then once you factor in, foul trouble of a teammate, right? A high usage player gets into foul trouble, has to come out, then that guy gets the usage. There's a lot of variance inside of a single basketball game. But over the course of 180 slates of a season, a full season of NBA, like if you were to compare the accuracy of the model to the actual, over the course of time, it's going to be more accurate than an NFL model or an MLB model, or that's what makes it easier to model. But it also means that if you're playing against players that also have similar models, that have some type of model, something that you're all kind of looking at the same things. Like the differences in cash games is a 2v2, and the reason why you have one and the other guy has the other is because in your model you gave a guy 1 more minute. That could be the difference of a 2v2. Yep. It's just because of the fact of Jimmy Butler's out, so I'm going to give Avery Bradley 26 minutes instead of 24, and then all of a sudden Avery Bradley is, small forward eligible and ends up as part of your value play, while if you just had him for 24 minutes, some other guy at a slightly higher price would end up there and you'd have like a 2v2. Mm-hmm. So it still comes down to the inputs. So if you're building your own model, you still have to wake up every morning and go, who's in, who's out, where are these minutes being allocated, how much usage do I have to change, assist rates, rebound rates, right? You take a big guy off the court, people's rebounds rates go up. These are the things. These are things like Cardi does for NFL for the Blitz all the time. Updates it throughout the week for Roto Grinders. I mean, the projections team updates the projections like 20 times a day, right here and there. New start. This is the starting lineup for the Pistons. We didn't expect Josh Jackson to start. We expect him to get usage in the second unit, which still made him a great value. But now it's going to change. Now Bay is starting, right? So now you have to move everything around with Blake Griffin out. So, like, at 5 o'clock, 2 hours before the slate, like, your projection said one thing, and then all of a sudden, like, now you get 3 minutes more here, 3 minutes less there, more usage there. And that's why, I mean, even, like, Ricky D tweeted out yesterday that, like, he stopped playing NBA DFS because it just affected his life too much. And he valued his time, his lifetime, more than squeezing out an edge in NBA DFS, which doesn't mean there's no edge in NBA DFS. It's just that you have to work a little bit harder at it, and you have to be around, especially now where even FanDuel is late swap again, and FanDuel's salary structure is soft as it is. So, I mean, if something happens after lock, and you could get a guy that's like 3,000, 4,000 underpriced. And if you're not swapping, you're losing so much EV by not doing so. So I just wanted to highlight that people listen and go, I can't believe Jordan doesn't watch the games, and then they go, I trust Eric. And then there's some people that are more on my side going, dude, I haven't watched a game in 7 years and I made $1 million playing DFS. Yeah, like you still have to know enough about what the nuances of the sport. I call it the core concepts of each sport. Yeah. So, like, a lot of people, I want to get into this. I know we'll talk a little bit about football also, but this is this is whatever it is. Because people think it's an NFL show only because we started it during NFL season. It's a DFS right. show. It's not, it's whatever it is, as long as we're talking about the game theory aspects. For NBA, people have been asking me so much because they're coming from NFL about correlations. And the fact that in NBA, and I keep on saying in NBA, the correlations are very weak. Like they're so weak that they should not be the focus. If you have those levers, projection, leverage, correlation, like correlation is the last lever. Like that's the one that's kind of the tiebreaker type of lever. Projection is the first one in NBA by far. And then for GPPs, leverage becomes way more important than in NFL, way more important than in MLB. MLB, the correlation lever is the one that you pull up, right? because you're stacking 5 players from a game and stuff like that. So people are talking about like well, who's positively correlated to one another? It's like they're really for the
almost no one.
Almost no one, right? Yeah. But there are players that are negatively correlated to their salaries. So to relate it back to NFL, we talk about like wide receivers on a team, like Thielen and Jefferson, Godwin and Evans, Julio and Ridley, like guys that are expensive and play together, where it's very hard at their salaries. If you're $7K in NFL, you want a 30+ point game out of them for like a GPP ceiling winning type of score. And unless the Falcons put up, 50 points in a game, it's kind of hard for both Julio and Ridley to have 150 in 2 games, right? One of them will, and the other one will either dud or just have an average game. Just like you could have taken Devontae Parker instead. You could have taken like 20 other receivers to get that score. So view NBA more similarly to that, where you have LeBron and AD, you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and you have all, not Harden and Westbrook anymore. Now you have Beal and Westbrook, Harden and Wall. I will see how that shapes up. That when their salaries are efficient, meaning neither of them is underpriced by any extent, like it's less probable. Doesn't mean it can't happen. It's less probable that they could both put up enough points to hit a target score in the same game. Now, if you took like Giannis and Middleton and you lowered Middleton's price to 3,000, well, his target score for 3,000 is 25. So like Middleton could put up 25 while Giannis puts up 70. But if Middleton's 7,500 and Giannis is 12,000, like it's quite likely, unless it's double overtime or something, that you're not going to see a winning GPP lineup that has both of them in there. It typically happens when you could start playing more players from a team is when one guy's out and the salaries start getting so inefficient that, we saw that last night. If you're listening now, we're talking about the Monday 5-game slate where Durant got ruled out and then Kyrie got ruled out. So it's like, great, the 2 most expensive high usage players from the Nets are gone. And everyone's still priced as if they're in. So like, when people are like,
Dinwiddie
got an ACL, right, and he's out for the right, so he's gone also. And we saw
3 starters, 3 of their best players,
right. And we saw Blake Griffin out earlier in the day. We saw Embiid get ruled out. That was the slate before, after lock. Like you'll see these things.
I wish he had played, so I didn't play.
Right,
Dwight
so I didn't
Howard,
play Dwight Howard, of course. But I mean, I got my cash games even with him, so it didn't matter. So. Just understand with the correlation aspect of NBA, knowing the teams, just the basics, like that's, Eric, you know basketball like 10 times more than I do. Like you're talking about zone defenses and all that. Like I've no idea about that stuff. I'm just relying on the math and over 180 slates. So like I don't. To me, my edge is in my game theory, not in those types of things. Getting a projection more accurate is like, I don't need the extra 0.5 point. Like I'll get it elsewhere.
And I think it's not to, but I do think it's important. It is those little nuances are more about identifying the wide ranges on the outside edges of the range of a player's outcomes, right? If like I said, and this is something I maybe get, and I'm watching the games anyway because I like the sport, so I'm not even like going in like I'm gonna get, like you described the guy, I watch the game so I know better. Like I don't really think that, but I think I do just by trying to study the sport because I like it. You can pick up a little bit X guy, right? That the 7th man might play in a certain matchup. He projects for 18 minutes. But you can identify on a slate, not like yesterday where there's infinite value. Maybe it's a tougher slate, but you can identify based on things that you've seen in a given matchup or whatever, that this player has a lot higher, you think he might project for more minutes, maybe just because of the matchup he projects for 24, but he has upside to like, maybe this game just goes totally small, right? You see that with like even the Nets before KD was playing some time at the 5. You'll see the Heat go really small, because they have Bam. they'll go really small. You have a lot of these teams that do that. Obviously, the Rockets, right? The Rockets were the extreme example last year where they don't have anybody taller than 6'6". So like figuring out who their opponent might play in order to match up can be an advantage. So anyway, it's little things like that where maybe you're identifying a $4,000 guy that projects for 18 minutes and is useless, but you think, well, there's actually upside here that he could like play some of the most minutes on the team given the matchup or whatever, So it's just little
right.
little
And
things
what
like
you're saying is from a mathematical standpoint is that 18
Yes.
points when you see the 18 minutes in your projections, that's the median. Like that's not I think he's going to get 18. It's that his median is 18, but it could be anywhere from 12 to 24. And you're like, well, based on the matchup, based on your basketball knowledge, you see that maybe there's more of a chance, probability that he's like that he could that the upper end could have that distribution is not necessarily a normal distribution. That his median may be 18, but it leans a lot of that curve leans towards times that he gets 24, but it also leans towards times that he may only get, you may be completely wrong, and then he only plays 14 minutes, and you're like, wow, they decided to go big, not small, and now I have a 8-point snowflake in my lineup. So,
but the payoff is great enough, like you said, to me it leans enough towards that higher upside, and the payoff is so great because no one is playing that guy, and maybe sometimes they're playing the opposite end, right? I think the game is going to go small, so the guard off the guard off the bench is going to get more time, but they're playing the center, right? People are playing the underpriced center or whatever, so now I'm getting leverage and whatever. It's just that's one really
right. What mathematically what you're doing is you're increasing the variance of your lineup.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's what you're describing. You're describing a guy that has a similar median, but a wider range of outcomes based on your basketball knowledge. And those core concepts of like knowing, you have two big guys up front. They're going to fight for rebounds. If one guy's out, the center's more likely to get more rebounds. They're like, I'm not saying that I don't, like, when I say I don't watch the games, it's not like I don't understand like the core concepts of how basketball is played. In the same way I understand how the core concepts of baseball is played or NFL is played. I mean, you take a look at what happened with the Cleveland Browns, and it's like if you know football, like if you didn't know football, you would think, oh, all their receivers are out, so Marvin Hall is just going to act as Jarvis Landry, and you're like, well, knowing football, it's quite possible, like you said with that matchups thing, that maybe they just run 2-3 tight ends, and maybe they run Kareem Hunt a bunch. Maybe they don't trust these practice squad receivers, and Austin Hooper and Harrison Bryant and Njoku and Hunt actually see the targets, and the wide receivers are just out there to kind of like stretch the coverage and whatever. But like if you didn't know football, like you wouldn't have even considered that. You would have just gone, well, I'm just going to play Marvin Hall. I'm going to play Derek Willis wherever he was. Available on FanDuel, but it's very similar to basketball. So like I want to bridge the divide between the watch the tape people and who cares about the tape people. Like the projections are fragile. Like projections are the medians. They're you see the range of outcomes. I take a look at today's slate. I mean, there are some players that at the high end have a range of outcomes of 23 to 51. I mean, like, come on. Like, yeah, the median's 37, but it's 23 to 51. So, compared to their ownership, if you look at, based on these rotations, like, is the 35 minutes in the projection, like, is that more of a cap? Is he kind of like, is he like? Because there's sometimes in NBA you see people, a guy will be out. And people will rush to play a guy that's already playing 36 minutes. Yep. And it's like his upside. I think of upside. You mentioned the minutes upside. I think of usage upside also. You have to think of either of those two. So for instance, you were talking about a situation where a guy would normally, if everyone was healthy and it was a normal game, a median game, would play 18 minutes. Right? Would play in the second unit or whatever, not close. But some guy is out, he may still be on the second unit, but the guy that's going to be putting in the starting unit is a high usage player from the second unit. So now that 18-minute a guy probably doesn't see more than 18 minutes still. But now for the second unit, his usage may go from 19% to 26%. Maybe he has ball handling duties now. Maybe he ends up, even if he's not the point guard, maybe he's like, okay, well, since this guy's going to be with the starters, this guy's going to be, we saw with DeLon Wright last night, right? Because for the Pistons, Blake and Rose were out, so no one knew what the starting lineup was until like 15 minutes before lock. We expected Killian Hayes to start, but we didn't know who's going to play shooting guard because DeLon Wright plays shooting guard for the second unit with Derrick Rose, and DeLon Wright has a history with the Mavericks and other teams as being like a pseudo point guard. Like he handles the ball. Mm-hmm. So people were debating if DeLon Wright starts, does that actually decreases the value of Killian Hayes because they may just be with the rookie, just have him kind of just play off ball. And although he was cheap, DeLon Wright was the better play. And then Josh Jackson, with DeLon Wright out of the second unit, basically runs the second unit because no Rose and no Wright. But now everything flipped. So Jackson started, Bay started, Hayes started, and DeLon Wright was now the guy with no one in the second unit. So if you, like, how much basketball do I know? I barely know what these players look like. But like if you're playing every day and you're following the rotations, even if you're just looking on a game flow tracker, you would see this type of stuff and you go, okay, now that Josh Jackson's in the starting unit, I'm going to play him because now he has minutes upside, right? Because now he's with the starters. DeLon Wright probably lowers his minutes, but now has usage upside in the second unit. We see that with Terrence Ross or something. If Fournier's out and Ross comes in, like, yeah, he has minutes upside, but now he's fighting for usage with Gordon and Vucevic and Fultz and all those guys. So now you're looking like who's in the second unit that is going to now see no increased minutes, but increased usage. So, like, Eric, based on my description of the account of like last night's Pistons game, would you say that I don't know anything about basketball?
Yeah, it sounds like you know everything about, like, you could go coach a little league team or something,
No, I can't. I don't know the sets. What's horns? I always say the old school horn set. What does that mean?
I don't know what horns is. It is also difficult. Everybody calls, outside of like a couple of really, really old school plays, everybody calls things different.
I know the pick and roll. I know that.
Yeah, everybody runs
the high screen,
and then like the like high school and college basketball, like God, dating myself, but everybody runs some version of a flex is a play. That's what we ran when I was in high school. It's the most boring motion offense of all time, but it still works. And they you go watch a Duke or a UNC or a Michigan State game, these guys will still run that.
I know ISO ball, right?
50 years. Yeah, James Harden.
Right, I know. James that's Harden exactly what that is. Right.
Yeah, but no, I thought last night the Pistons thing is such a good example to talk about because it's incredibly nuanced and understanding that team, like you described it perfectly. It's understanding those players. It's understanding the players that are out. It's understanding what is happening to these lineups now. Like you said, okay, now DeLon Wright is playing with Svi Mikhailuk and Isaiah Stewart and these scrubs on the second unit. So he's just going to do everything. So even though his minutes projection, his median minutes is now lower, and his floor is probably lower on his minutes, it's more than offset by the usage. And one thing people don't take into account sometimes is it really doesn't matter if guys start or not. Like maybe for a true minute ceiling, it matters. Like you can't technically play.
Well, you're really actually not even thinking about them starting. Like who closes the second and fourth quarter. That's what matters.
So we used to see, like last year, Dennis Schroeder didn't start for the Thunder, and sometimes he would lead the team in minutes because he would come off the bench 6 minutes in, and he might not leave the floor the rest of the half. So people worry about starting too much, and so DeLon Wright still could have played 36 minutes off the bench for all we know. It's unlikely, but if he, like you said, if he closes the halves, and he didn't, but like he played so well on that second unit, it's very reasonable that he could close those halves and play maybe the most minutes on the team. So there's all this context to that. And then you also have to understand like these players and their role on teams. Josh Jackson is a very polarizing guy. If you played NBA DFS
I've lost a lot of slates with the 6-point Josh Jackson, chalk Josh Jackson. Yeah, I've done it.
Chalk, 2 for 15 and probably 4 fouls in the first half, and So, but if you know him, like it's not going to be for lack of opportunity and lack of shooting and lack of rebound. Like the guy does stuff when he's on the floor. We can say whatever we want about his real life NBA ability and his volatility, but like at cheap prices. And then you put him on this Pistons team he's starting with rookie Killian Hayes, who, and I'm not going to, get too nitty gritty on him, but he's not quite ready to be like an NBA star. He's kind of he's a young kid who's not ready yet. Sadiq Bey, another rookie who's just like a 3-and-D type guy, and then Jeremy Grant and Plumlee. That's like somebody has to do something, and now you're inserting this guy who that's the one thing he knows how to do is give me the ball and let me go be selfish and and chuck and rebound and all that kind of stuff. It's like it would have been nice for him to be on the second unit, but now he's just like a lock because he could play. What did he play? 35 minutes or something like that. It's like, so like understanding all this, it was maybe better for DeLon being on the second unit than being on the first unit. It was maybe better for Hayes. I'm not sure what it was, which way was better for Hayes, honestly. But Josh Jackson, we just needed the minutes. Like he was good either way. He was probably a lock either way. But like you give Josh Jackson 36-minute upside, it didn't really matter who he was playing.
Right, he was 4,200. I mean, like that's
it doesn't matter. So like understanding all of that is very different from like the Magic situation, right? Okay, even if we take out Aaron Gordon, like let's say we take out Aaron Gordon and they start Ross, or you take out Fournier and they start Ross. These guys are not playing next to Sadiq Bey and Killian Hayes. They're still playing next to Fultz and Vooch and whatever, and like there's only one ball to go around, and like and even if guys are at cheap prices, there's a lot more things you have to consider about a situation like that. And I think people oftentimes, which we might, not to get into like slate, like tonight's slate analysis type stuff, but we'll have guys out again, like the Cavs are shorthanded. You'll get guys like Dante Exum, right? Starting now. And it's like, oh, he's cheap. He did well. He did well last game. He's productive. Well, I don't know if he's productive on a per minute basis, but you insert him into the starting lineup, and it's like, this is not a Josh Jackson situation. He's playing next to Andre Drummond and Colin Sexton and Darius Garland and Larry Nance and whatever. Like, is he even ever going to touch the ball? Like you just have to be able to apply the context of each team, and all of that, I think, sometimes does get lost in projections.
No. I want to debate. I want to say something about that because that's what I want. It does get reflected in projections. If obviously all these things you have to consider if you're building your own model. But if, let's say, I use the Roto Grinders projections, I'm very clear about that. I do look at projections around the industry also. I trust guys like Noto and Tuttle and Reeves and Allen and Jamino and Meansy. Like, they know more about basketball than I do. Just like I would trust you, Eric, that like those assessments, I would trust you. So I want you to change the projections and the usage for that for me. And I trust the model. But what the model will not tell you, because it's just showing you minutes and ranges of outcomes and medians, is the negative correlations. Because in NBA, you care more about the negative ones than the positive ones. So in the example that you give where overpriced players, depending, if you don't want to play players that come out 1-for-1 for each other, because basically you want the upside of one guy getting into foul trouble or not playing well, and then they just run with the other guy. So if like a point guard backup, so like knowing the rotations, like this guy always comes in for that guy, like you should probably, unless they're ridiculously underpriced, not play them together because like they will play 48 minutes combined. You don't know. It could be 36 and 12. It could be 24 and 24. Like, you don't know. So typically you don't want to play them together. You also don't want to play two high usage players in the same unit when they're efficiently priced. So like that's why I talk about like LeBron and AD, those types of things. But in the Pistons example, uh, the way that they put the starting unit, like I would be less inclined when Josh Jackson enters the starting lineup to play Killian Hayes and Josh Jackson together.
Yep.
Right? Because now Josh Jackson's going to start grabbing the ball. Killian Hayes, he's going to tell the rookie, get the hell out of here, right? And he's going to go do all his stupid stuff that probably is not good for basketball, but good for fantasy. And then Plumlee will be fine. You know, like playing Jackson and Plumlee would be fine. Playing Hillian and Plumlee would be fine. And then DeLon Wright is kind of out on an island where, if anything, DeLon Wright would come in and close over Killian than Josh Jackson. So to me, I wouldn't play Hayes and Killian together. I wouldn't play Jackson and Killian together, but I don't mind playing DeLon and Jackson together. And Plumlee is kind of out on an island also, so at his price, like I could play him with any of the guys because it's more rebounds and putbacks, and he was only like 6,000, so a good double-double game gets him there. So, like, knowing the projections already reflect the usage in the minutes if you're using a good model and good inputs. It's already doing that. But those things that I just said, like, well, when do you play guys together, when you don't play guys together? Like, that you have to follow the teams a little bit. And when I say don't play them together, it doesn't mean that they both can't go off. If they're both 3K, you can play them. It's all dependent on the salary that they are, and it just lowers their probability. That's all it does. It's quite possible that I could have played all of them, played 4 Pistons together at 4K to 5K, and the Pistons put up 120 points, and it's all through those guys, and they're all Flames, and they're all in the winning GPP lineup. There's a probability for that, but there's also a probability of one having an average game and one having a great game. There's a probability they get blown out, and like none of them have a flame emoji. One has a snowflake. There are all these different types of outcomes. But thinking in terms of if this guy does well, who does it negatively benefit? In NFL, we typically think the other way.
Yeah.
If this guy does well, if this receiver does well, then this quarterback did well. If this running back did well, if this defense did, like those are positive correlations. In NBA, we think less in, well, if Andre Drummond does well, does that mean Darius Garland did well? Like, it doesn't mean anything. That in and of itself, because Drummond could have 13 real-life points and 24 rebounds and 5 blocks. Like, it didn't even have anything to do with, like, the baskets that he put in. So, like, those types of correlations don't matter. It's more the fact of if Drummond has a big game, it's less likely that Nance has a bit, like, it's less likely Nance has a double-double if Drummond has a 20-20, right? Because there's only so many rebounds. So you think of those things. Can Nance and Drummond both have a good game together, even at efficient prices? Yes, it could happen, but it's less likely. The projections won't tell you those types of things necessarily. They'll tell you the medians and the ranges of outcomes, but just the basics. So, like, I'll come back. I want the validation, Eric, that even though I'm my number one answer to any NBA question is what do the projections say, and I don't I win at DFS NBA and I don't watch the games. Like, I'm not a schmuck for thinking that like nope, names on a spreadsheet. I say these things as exaggerations to prove a point. Names on a spreadsheet, numbers on a thing, like for those nuanced things. You could get away with not giving a shit about correlation in NBA. It's so weak that if you just said, I'm just going to set some randomness and set some groups and, exposures and, I want to get a lot of, this guy's going to be low owned, I'm going to get 30% of that guy, you could probably still build really good lineups and, like, never even give a crap about correlation. But especially, Eric, if you're a hand builder, you're playing the high stakes, smaller field contests, which I like, just like in NFL, I play the large field, low stakes stuff. So I'm more likely to play 60 lineups than just 2 or 3. But when you're building 2 or 3 lineups, one lineup, like, you're thinking of these terms of, well, if the Brooklyn, Kyrie and Durant is out and LeVert is chalk, and you're going to play LeVert, it makes sense to, like, if you're going to have to choose between SGA, Trae Young, or Ja Morant, like, it makes more sense to play Ja Morant because Ja Morant's in the same game as LeVert, And if this game is close and goes over, like they're both going to get max minutes. It makes less sense. Like if you fade LeVert in the lineup, like it's less likely that you play Grizzlies in that lineup for the same reason of like, well, if LeVert doesn't get there as chalk, like it means that the game dudded. It means that the Grizzlies blew him out, and even the Grizzlies don't even play max minutes. So those are the types of things that you probably that I'm assuming you think of those types of things when you hand build your couple of lineups.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite things about NBA because it's actually so simple. And like if this were NFL, people like everybody would do this, but it's the sport is everybody's so projection focused, and then especially last night was one of the most interesting 5-game slates I think I can remember, just with all the different guys out and everything. And then you have the Harden and Christian Wood situation. And so it was like, there was just such a clear and obvious team, like on all sites, like kind of clear and obvious, maybe a 2v2 or whatever.
Right. You also remember, I just want to throw in, remember we didn't have news whether or not LeBron was going to sit or not.
Oh yeah. Right. So that's also important.
And that was a late game. So like you had to like that was 2 hours later than the 8 o'clock tip off. And you're like, should I plan for Dennis Schroeder teams like in some way?
So I played 80. Not to again get like too focused on one specific slate, but I think there were so many good examples of kind of some tournament theories, and we can get into. You posted a tweet of what some of the pros did, and there's one that I thought was really good. But anyway, so last night, the concepts that you just talked about was exactly what I did. So you had basically chalk, cheap Nets plus LeVert, chalk Pistons, but no one was playing Hawks and no one was really playing Grizzlies on the other side because everyone was paying for James Harden, right? And Christian Wood. So like everybody's lineup came with multiple Nets, probably multiple Pistons, and then James Harden and Christian Wood, and maybe some sort of variation there. It's like, that's what everybody's playing basically on both sites. And I don't know about Yahoo. You're playing Yahoo, but it's probably pretty similar. So that's where just this tiniest, simplest pivot where I do want to think about correlation, but it is from the how if the Pistons are going to play well and maybe speed this game up, right? That's kind of what the verbiage I will usually use when I'm correlating opposing sides of a game, right? So if I'm playing multiple Pistons, and on FanDuel I played 3, I played DeLon, Josh Jackson, and Plumlee. Well, why would I pay it for Harden when I can pay it for Trae Young? Because if all these Pistons are going to go off, like either they're trying to chase down because Trae Young, and the Hawks are having a big game, or vice versa. Now maybe Trae has to play more minutes to try to catch up, or Trae's chucking threes at the end of the game because they're down, or like I said, he got them a lead by doing what Trae Young does sometimes, and people aren't paying for Trae because they're playing for James Harden. Same thing if I'm playing these multiple Nets and I'm playing LeVert, why would I not play John Morant, right? If John Morant goes for 40 points like he did on opening night, that there's a benefit to, like the correlation is small. It's very small. And I don't even think it mattered last night when we ended up seeing the results. So people would say, oh, see, didn't need any Grizzlies.
Come on, Ja got injured. I mean, I know. I mean, that's a different brutal story also.
That was really brutal. But, but people will see the results and be like, yep, see, projections, just play the projections, crushed it. But for every time that happened. But the other thing that was really interesting about last night is Harden and Christian Wood failed too. So Harden ended up being in winning lineups solely because of the raw points, because of
points and ownership. I mean, Harden was so owned. LeBron was like 2% owned and put up more points by 1 or 2 or something.
Yeah, and so like LeBron, in theory, is who you should have paid for, but we didn't know anything. So anyway, that was part of my strategy. I'm like, I'm playing all these same, pretty chalky, cheap guys that everybody else is playing, plus Karis LeVert. So you have to do something to try to beat your opponents, right? You can't just play 1v1. You can, I guess, but I don't think that's a very smart path to winning, is just playing 1v1s or even 2v2s. So you just take a stand and to me, that stand last night was the easiest one for someone like me playing 1, or just a couple of teams, was just basically going to these other unowned studs, as opposed to James Harden. I wasn't like opposed to Christian Wood, but I ended up pivoting off of Christian. I didn't have him anyway, but I ended up playing someone else over Christian Wood, Rudy Gobert. But it was the same concept. I'm just playing those guys, right? Playing Trae Young and John Morant and whoever over Harden, and then playing someone like Rudy Gobert over Christian Wood. And it's like, all you need is basically two guys to fail, because all these 3K guys and LeVert, like, they were their ceiling probability was so high, it didn't matter that much. But these, like, why can't Ja and Trae Young or whoever, right? Shea, do you like Shea, or do you like Donovan Mitchell, or whoever? Just name the list. There was actually a ton of those guys last night that were like really good.
Lillard was there also. McCollum put up 50 plus.
You could wait out the LeBron situation. Plug in AD or LeBron. I think LeBron was more. Plug in LeBron. If LeBron plays, you get, like you said, you get LeBron at 1%, sub 1%, on a 5-game slate against one of the worst defenses in the NBA. Like, there was a lot of really, Jokic was fairly low owned, and he was the one who ended up having the big game. But there were so many ways to do that I thought it was such an awesome tournament slate. Like, I didn't win. I got dusted. I played Ja, so that didn't really matter. But there was so many, really, it was such a fun tournament slate, I thought. Just because you could still build like seriously awesome teams. Like, you didn't have to get really very fancy at all. You just had to make like I said, a pivot just slightly down from Harden, and you got these unowned studs. And that was, you posted on Twitter what some of the pros did, and Wakey, for anybody that doesn't know, he's a pretty aggressive tournament player. I really like the way that he plays.
Very high variance. Understand that. Like, he wins on the slates where, like, if everyone's tilting on Twitter over all the chalk plays, Wakey's, you can probably going to see his lineups at the top. Like, because the other example that you give, like, the thinking of this is we're getting back into lineups, not players, right?
Yeah.
So you're playing chalk LeVert, but you're fading chalk Harden. You could have gone the other way and said, I'm gonna fade chalk LeVert, but because I'm fading a 75% owned player, I could play Harden, I could play Wood, I could play Jokic. Now I have a 3-man kind of little game stack there on a 5-game slate. And then if LeVert fails, I can't play the Grizzlies. Maybe LeVert doesn't fail, but the production goes elsewhere. So maybe you play Joe Harris instead of LeVert. And then Morant still doesn't get there. So maybe you just play Joe Harris as a one-off. And like, he's at 4,300, he's the one that puts up 40 points. LeVert only puts up 35 or something. It's a low-scoring game. Or you just fade the game completely. But once you fade LeVert, now you fade LeVert, you could play chalk Harden, and then now you're just building your line. Now, plug in the best plays. Now you're plugging in Josh Jackson. You're plugging in, that for your type of contest, especially, Eric, like that's literally all you have to do. For me, I have to think a little bit more. It's a little bit more leverage. I mean, I have to go like, well, maybe I play Killian Hayes and Mason Plumlee and no Josh Jackson and do, maybe I play DeLon Wright as a one-off. Like, but once you get enough leverage, get to the point of getting enough leverage for the contest that you're in. This is why when I hand build in NBA, I start with that mindset. I start with, how do I get leverage first? Build the leverage, and then I have like 5 slots left. And I'm like, okay, who are the best projected players? Like, how do I match them in? How do I fit them in? I could even do that with an optimizer. A lot of times I'm going, on the slate that we're talking about, if I decided to fade LeVert and play Harden, Wood, Jokic, I would just X out. I would play X out every net but the Harris and all the Grizzlies. And then just plug in Harden, Jokic, Wood, and press the optimize button and go, what's the best median lineup with this? What's the ownership sum? Which is just a blunt guideline, I just want to see in comparison to other lineups. And if that looks good, then I play it. And there you go. Then if that has enough leverage for the contest that I'm in, like, I'm going to play that lineup. And then I'm going to look, is there a combination of that? Like, let's say I'm playing 60 lineups. And it's only a 5-game slate, so it's not like you have a million choices, right? Yeah. So I would set what I would do in the optimizer. Like, I'm doing the same thing as you, Eric. Like, we're both literally doing the same thing. I'm just using a tool to look at things, and you're just
Yep.
using your thumb to go like switch out this guy and this guy. And then, right, exactly. But you're still looking at projections, and you're like, who are the top 10 projected players on the slate? Let me plug in my leverage, and then out of those 10 players, what are the combinations that I could fit into the rest of the spots? Well, I could use a tool to do that. So I'll set my like uniques to like 1 or to like 2, right? And plug that in, X out the other game except for Joe Harris, and then run 20 lineups and go, as long as there's a 2v2 on each lineup, let me take a look at all 20 of them. And then if I look and I go, that makes sense, that makes sense, that doesn't make sense. That makes sense, that and you go, well, if I do these lineups, I'm going to have to play a lot of Josh Jackson. And then I have to decide, then my second thing is, how much risk profile on the slate in my 60 lineups do I want to rely on Josh Jackson? Like, so when people think in terms of exposures, don't think of exposures as a strategy. That's just the byproduct of your strategy. I know that if I'm going to make these Harden, Jokic, Wood lineups without the Nets game, like I'm gonna need a small. I need a small forward, right? Essentially, I need a small forward. That's why. But that's the reason why I said Joe Harris, because he's small forward eligible. Like I already knew that in the back of my mind of, if LeVert fails, maybe Harris succeeds, and at least he's small forward eligible, so I don't have to play a ton of Josh Jackson. Because then I look at the small forward pool that's left there, and I don't see much. So it's like, if I am going to use this strategy for my 60 lineups to slate, I'm gonna have to play like 80% Josh Jackson. Like I'm gonna like it's gonna be inevitable. Either that, or I have to find a small forward that's worth playing in a lineup. So you know what I'll do then? Once I see that, if I saw that, I would X out Josh Jackson and then run 20 lineups and go, now, what do these look like? If the highly projected Josh Jackson is in, and I look at them and I go, okay, they're not bad lineups, but what's their median in comparison to the Josh Jackson lineups? If I see that there's a very big gap, then I may decide to go, yeah, I guess I'm playing 80% Josh Jackson this slate. I guess that's my risk this slate, and I'm willing to eat it. Or if I see that the lineups are not all that different, if I see that the top 5 Josh Jackson lineups like that are at X, and the top 5 non-Josh Jackson lineups are X minus 1 point, maybe then I decide, okay, maybe I split it. Maybe I have 40% Josh Jackson and 40% of whatever other small forward fits in that spot. Maybe I do 60-20. Maybe I do 70-10. At that point, it doesn't matter. At that point, I'm just assessing my risk profile, my diversification for the slate, not a strategy. Because the lineups in and of themselves, the difference between the difference between the 14th best Josh Jackson lineup and the second best John Jackson lineup is the same points. So and if it's the same ownership, it's essentially the same EV lineup, right? Lineups, not players. So you're building 2 or 3 lineups, 5 lineups, 1 lineup, depending on the day. I always want to highlight, we do the same things. You may ballpark a lot of you don't know that the median of one lineup is 284.61, right? But you know that it's around there because you're building players that are highly projected. So, like, you know that I'm going to go down and pick guys that are projected for like 4.5x. It's like, if you're going to play one of those players, you're like, I have a gut feeling on this guy that projects as the 57th best play on the slate. Like, all you know in your head is that, well, if I'm going to play that guy at 1%, I need to jam in the best projected players in the rest of my lineup, or this median is going to be just too low for me to play.
Right. Exactly. And like you said, we're definitely doing the exact same thing. And every slate is like a little bit different. Yesterday was so kind of polarizing that on slates like that, like comparing to tonight, it might be a little bit different. Shorter slates, the leverage is even more important. Like specific leverage points, are even more important. Which, like, I brought up Wakey because I thought his strategy, like I said, I kind of play similarly to how he does. So he X'd out Harden and Christian Wood last night, which that's what I did. I only played a couple teams, but like that's what I did. I specifically leveraged off of those 2 guys so I could do whatever I wanted, and that's pretty much what he did. He just bet on everyone else that's expensive and bet beating those 2 guys, and then play whoever you want. So that is kind of my strategy. But what I will do on slates like last night, where it's so clear cut, right, and the chalk is going to be so popular, so I'll build, whether it's you can do it in lineup HQ, click run the optimal, or I'll hand build it because I've looked at the projections and I just know, you just know when all those nets are out, to plug in Karis LeVert, right? You play this game long enough, you just know it's easy to click in, bang, 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 bang. Here's all the best plays. And so, I'm like, I got the cash team, so I know basically what the cash team is. Like I can definitely build one of the most duplicated lineups, if not the most duplicated lineup on a slate like last night really easily, right? And then you look at it, I already kind of knew I wanted to leverage off of Harden, but you look at it and you're like, okay, everybody's playing this. And then you start to assess it, right? Like you said, maybe it's let's fade Karis LeVert and do Joe Harris or do other nets, whatever. Maybe it's that, or maybe it's like what I did, where it's like, okay, if everybody's going to pay up for Harden, well, I can just add a couple quick correlations with the unknown studs from the games I'm already playing. But looking at that, like I find it helpful to specifically on slates like last night, where it's like the chalk is seriously so absurd, plug in that optimal and just look at it for just sit there in silence, right, for a second and meditate on that lineup. Just be like, what's the best way to leverage this? For like a hand builder like me, it's definitely important for every single DFS player, but I have to, I'm only doing it once, right? I have to pick the one thing. In your 60 lineups, you might, I don't know how exactly you handle it. If you would do both, okay, I'm going to leverage off of Harden and Wood in 20. I'm going to leverage off of Josh Jackson in 20, and I'm going to leverage up, right? But you have the ability to do that in multiple lineups. Me, I'm like, I really have to sit there and think. And that's what I spend the majority of my time. Like, I know who the best plays are, right? We all know who the best plays are. Look at the projections. But being thoughtful about, okay, what's the best way for me to beat in these smaller fields against Wakey and Empire Maker and Petty and all these guys, all the best players in the world. What are they gonna be doing? What's the best way for me to beat them? What leverage point? And be thoughtful about that. So I came, for me, it just happened to be last night that I thought that decision was James Harden, and tonight, who knows what it'll be, and tomorrow, who knows what it'll be. But that's like a process that I found that really, really helps me make strong, seriously, really strong tournament teams just about every night, without people just start clicking shit in, right? Like we talk about hand builders, and I think some people it gets a bad connotation because it's like, oh, just pull up my phone and just start clicking in my favorite plays. But if you don't start with some foundation of like you said, a strategy for that slate, you have to develop a strategy for that slate. And people will just start with, so-and-so's out. Okay, let me click this guy in. Oh, I like Zion tonight. Oh, click Zion in. Oh, I like so-and-so. Click that guy in. And the next thing you know, you just got this jumbled mess of a lineup. There's no strategy. You just clicked in some buttons. So I think it's really important. Just this whole conversation, last night's slate was seriously so polarizing from a strategy perspective. But it's such a good one to highlight kind of how you should go about NBA DFS tournaments, I think.
And that's why I find NBA DFS to be exciting. I mean, to me, I compared it to being an air traffic controller. It feel like out of all the DFS type of sports, it's the type of thing where, I mean, yes, you don't have people's lives at the balance on a screen or whatever, but imagine being at LaGuardia Airport with 700 flights coming in, in and out over a 3-hour period, and you're like, well, I got to move this there, I got to move. Oh, this guy's out and whatever, and then every time a bit of news happens, could change the outlook of well, now that this value guard is going to be chalk, now the construction's old. Now people are going to pay up for this guy, and now the mid-range small forwards are going to be low owned. But an hour ago you would have thought something completely differently because the news changed so much. So you take a look at ownership projections, you take a look at the constructions that are possible, and you go, well, I know what the chalk construction is. You could even just go from, I know what the chalk construction is. How do I get a different construction? Everyone's paying down at center. I'm paying up at center.
Yeah.
And then that's it. But the point that I make a lot, because people poo-poo cash games, right? You don't really play cash games. I play cash games.
I have been on FanDuel. I have started playing cash games, and that has been good and actually fun. I've enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Well,
So
when you
I
win, of
will.
course it's fun.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. If I was getting my ass kicked every night, yeah, I probably would have quit by now. But
But I was saying,
I do enjoy it.
obviously, if January 4th, next Monday, I start the DFS pregame show Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. on the Roto Grinders YouTube channel, on Roto Grinders on the site, on whatever in the app. So we'll be talking about NBA and whatever, and then MLB and whatever. It's it's a teaching show and a review show. And I'll be I have a document. I tweeted it out that I'm tracking my actual cash play publicly on FanDuel, DraftKings, and Yahoo. So you could just take a look. I mean, just show how a cash player would play. Not the lineups, but allocation. I started with my bankroll of 20,000, which is like 10% of my actual bankroll. So like that's my like if you had 20,000, you paid 10% a day. You paid about a half in head-to-heads, 40 something percent in double ups, 10% in triple ups of three mans. Like this is what would I like, okay, well, my bankroll's at 23,000, so now I'm playing 2,300 today. How am I splitting it between the sites? And then the results. And then like, oh, lost this, lost that, won this, and tallies it all up. But even if you don't play cash games, if you're not interested, if you don't know, if you can't build a good cash lineup, you can't possibly understand like what the field is going to do in GPPs. So like if you don't have projections and go, well, these are the quote best plays, it's not hard to figure out. And you go, okay, well, based on this is what a lot of lineups are going to look like. And then, yeah, you're not playing double up. Yeah, this would be a great double up lineup. But if you don't want to play double ups, like you need to know that in order to go, well, I'm going to leverage off a Levert. I'm going to leverage off a Harden. I'm going to flip the construction. But there are a lot of people out there. I mean, this is the people that we make money off of. That if you're going in to I always say this, Eric. If you go into a slate and the slate locks and you pull up ownership in your GPP and you see a guy that's like 45% owned on like a 10-game slate and you're like, I didn't even consider that guy. Then you're not judging the slate properly. And the same thing is if you played 5 lineups and you jammed in this one great, I gotta play this. This is the best play on the slate by far, hands down, lock of the day, pick of the week, whatever you want to call it. And you plug him in all your lineups and he ends up being 1.2% owned. Like you fucked up. Like then he wasn't the best play. It doesn't matter. He could put up 70 points. That would be an outlier. Great, you're a fortune teller. Feel free to post your screenshots. The market is going to be reasonably enough efficient that in GPPs, especially at the higher stakes, that like there's no guy that like is the best play and in your contest, Eric, end up being 4% owned.
No. Can I take one caveat? Chris Godwin last year against the Rams was 1% at high stakes, but he was questionable and like we didn't know if it was an afternoon.
That was just same for LeBron last night. Same. I mean, I'm talking about it just in general. Like the concept is that if you're complete on a night to night basis, if you're completely confused by why players are certain owned in 100%. Contests, that means you haven't done the basic stuff of like identifying inefficiently priced players and stuff like that. But which projections are going to tell you? So like yep. If you can people do that by eye. You don't need projections. I mean, like I could just go into a slate on FanDuel and go, why is Dylan Brooks 3,700? Like, I mean, like, yeah, right. I don't need projections for that. Like I could just look and go, why does a guy that plays 36 minutes with that usage is priced like a bench player? Like this guy should be 6,000. Like what gives FanDuel? Like I didn't need, I put him in my lineup before I do my dummy lineups like the night before. And I'm just going, who's out tomorrow? This guy, and I just put together something, just so an overview. This guy seems too cheap for this guy being out and whatever. And then by the next morning, I look at the projections and go, okay, I was close, but I didn't realize this and that and whatever. But like you could do that without projections. But if you can't even do that without I mean, now you're dead, right? Like you could just use the projections and not know anything, and that's fine. Or you could know enough to identify inefficiently priced players, which a lot of high stakes cash players do. I mean, like it's not it's especially in NBA DFS with all the news that comes out. It's if you're good, I mean, it's like identifying underpriced stocks. It's like identify, go to the grocery store and go, well, oranges shouldn't be that cheap. I mean, like it's some of it is a little bit of just experience and common sense, but either you're doing that or you're using projections. But if you can't identify the cash lineup or a cash lineup or 10 potential cash lineups, it's hard to be good at GPPs because you at that point you're just throwing darts. You can't have a strategy without being able to gauge what the market is doing.
Exactly. And so anytime, I'm not out here handing out advice a lot or anything like that, but when people will, I have some buddies who casually play DFS, have started to play a lot more NFL and got a lot better at NFL. But one of the biggest things that I'll tell anybody, including that, who are trying to play it a little bit more serious, because like you say all the time, right? We're in this to make money, and they want to make money at this, not just have a lottery ticket on a Sunday. But it's maybe even more true for NBA. Spend time figuring out how to build that cash game lineup, on every slate. If you want to play cash games, whatever. But until you can do that, I really do believe what you said, I really want to highlight it, just reiterate it. Until you can build, or at least get very, very close to building that optimal lineup without really trying, you're probably wasting some money in tournaments, like you said, because if you're opening things the slate locks and you're like, I thought Joel Embiid was a lock today and he's 3%, right? And you're like, yeah, you probably fucked this slate up. You probably are not winning anything.
Right. I mean, if you thought
you could,
right. If you, I want to highlight the fact that it's different than saying, I know Joel Embiid's going to be low owned, so I'm going to play him as leverage in case he has an outlaw, in case he hits his ceiling, because you're planning that to be you're planning a 3% owned Embiid in your lineup and then building out the best plays from there. Type of thing. It's different than going into a slate. I mean, this is the same thing with my fucking leverage questions on the NFL that I stopped doing because I just got how easy can I make it? Where I say here the and it's always who's the highest owned guy? Who's so the three questions are take the three highest owned players that are going to be on the slate, which I could identify in a half a second. And then who's the negatively correlated player to them? And they go David Montgomery's going to be popular, so Allen Robinson is leveraged. So I mean, this isn't complicated, but a lot of times I would get responses back of it has to be this guy because of this, and their answer is it's going to be Tyler Boyd because it's going to be Tyler Boyd because T Higgins is going to be 30% owned. I mean, yeah, last slate he was, but on a slate where he's going to be 6%. And I go, why? Right? Oh, it's definitely CeeDee Lamb because Amari Cooper is going to be 30% owned. Where are you getting 30% from? Amari Cooper is going to be 6% owned. What are you, you're complete. Yes, you're right. If Amari Cooper was 30% owned, CeeDee Lamb would be leveraged. You get the concept. Way to go, guy. I have no problem. You seem to get the concept of leverage. Sure. But you completely misjudged ownership, so you getting leverage off of a 6% owned guy to a 2% owned guy is not. What does that do? They're going into the slate going, why is David Montgomery 40% owned? Going, how did you not realize that? You may think that would be a good way to get different and go, I'm going to fade Montgomery for leverage. Fine, but you have to know that beforehand. You can't just go in with the 3% owned Embiid and go, well, now I have the ownership sum of my lineup now is fucking 58 or something because you expected a 40% owned Embiid. It's now your median projection is fucking 30 points below optimal and you may get lucky. Yeah, it could happen, but right. As a long-term strategy, it's negative EV.
Yeah, that's just the thing that, and I didn't even really used to do this. It's been a growth in my NBA game. I would say 2 years ago, I was probably pretty bad at NBA. I think I started like everybody else did, doing this, playing the best plays because, the game was so. No game I think has changed more than NBA DFS. All the DFS sports have changed a lot, but nothing has changed more than NBA DFS over the last, say 5 years or whatever. So you could just play the best plays, right? Like last night, you could have just cleaned up 3 to 5 years ago because the field didn't understand that all these 3K guys were good plays, and Karis LeVert would be like 40%, not
right.
80%.
Imagine TLC would have came in at like 4% ownership for no.
Yeah, exactly. Like who the hell is Timothy Luwawu-Cabarrot, and why did you play him? Yeah, he'd be like 5% or whatever. You just could have cleaned up, and now obviously those guys are all extremely, extremely high owned. But I think that has made, it's kind of like adapt or die type thing, right? You don't see a lot, and I'm not trying to throw shade, but you don't see a lot of the people who were really, really successful NBA DFS players 5-10 years ago out there printing money still in NBA DFS because the game has evolved a lot.
Isn't that the joke? That's where the joke comes from, right, Eric?
Oh yeah.
Nobody loses at NBA DFS, right? But I'm being serious. That's literally where the joke. Like that was a joke before I started playing. Like when I started playing in 2015, I didn't even start playing NBA DFS until 2017. But I was on Twitter and stuff because I was playing soccer DFS and I was still following people. I subscribed to Roto Grinders and stuff because then I got into baseball and I got to NBA eventually. But like that was the joke even when I like in 2015 of like oh, you're playing soccer DFS. Why don't you play NBA? No one loses at NBA DFS. And I hate basketball. Why do I want to play it? Right? Like that was my attitude for 2 years. But Eric, that is where it comes from, that because of the low variance and the high projectability of basketball, that back in 2013, like Karis LeVert would be 40% owned, which would still be the highest owned player on the slate, but like 60% of the field would not. You'd still have 3% ownership on Kyrie Irving, and you'd still have 2% ownership in Durant. In a GPP, even if they're out, you'd have 1% ownership in Blake Griffin. Josh Jackson would have been 6% owned, right? DeLon Wright would have been 4%, like on a 5-game slate, because people are like, no, who are the names that I know, and they didn't, and the casual people, even the casual people that played regularly, didn't really have, either they didn't think about it hard enough or didn't have access to tools that would tell them that when this guy is out, this guy is God, right? Or this guy is 3,000 underpriced. So, like, the people that knew, like, just simply, like, just knowing basketball. Like, that's all you need to know. That whole analysis I did with the Pistons earlier, like, if you knew that in 2013, you made a lot of money. Now the projections already reflect that. So, like, that in and of themselves, that's not gonna do much for you. Now you have to learn how to build plus EV lineups in a game environment where most of the field knows that information. And if you didn't evolve to that, you're probably sitting, in GPPs going, why haven't I won in so long?
Yep, exactly. It's funny looking back. The first ever GPP I won was an NBA. I don't know if you were playing this maybe 5 years ago. I can't even remember how long ago it was. They used to have the $3 sharpshooter was what it was called. It was called the sharpshooter for the longest time, and they did away with it. Now they rename the tournaments every day, and it's miserable. But I played like the low dollar. I didn't have a big bankroll back then, but like the low dollar, big field stuff, and it like what you're describing is exactly how it was. Like I didn't know what I was doing, but I started to figure out a little bit of like, okay, if X guy is out, this guy is good. And I was paying attention up until lock and swapping when I needed to swap. And that was enough for a guy who really wasn't even probably building very good teams to be able to just crush at NBA DFS. And the thing about it now is that I don't want to say the majority of the field is not playing tournaments correctly, but there's still, it's so easy to make like, the optimal lineups or like slight pivots off the optimal lineups and just like mass enter that play one team or a couple of teams and enter it into everything and realize your expected value over a large sample of NBA. Like if you're just one of the best NBA players, these guys are just playing we talk about what like Empire will do in sport. He plays this one team He puts it in everything, and he just realizes his edge over a huge sample and millions of dollars entered, right? And there's other people that do that. So, in the large field, low dollar, it's a little bit different. But the more you get into smaller fields, the more you get into single entries, the more you move up in stakes. People are playing much. The more you move up in stakes and the smaller the field gets, the closer to the optimal everybody's team gets, right? So like that's it. Just starts.
So the more opportunity you have to leverage that. I mean that.
Exactly.
I mean it's kind of weird. People are listening now that may have been playing NFL DFS and maybe they haven't played NBA DFS. Maybe this will convince them to play NBA DFS. I talked to people in the Roto Grinders Discord that are moving over from NFL, never played NBA. They look at and they go, I haven't followed the NBA in years. I don't know who Domantas Sabonis is. I know his father or something, right? Like that type of thing. And they've been playing for 5 days, and they're applying the same concepts from the course, the 15-hour audio DFS master course at theoryofdfs.com. And they're doing like, we're literally talking about the same thing we talked about in NFL, right? I mean, like you're saying, well, this is in the small field contests, the ownership gets condensed so that the leverage available is massive. So if you could leverage in one or two spots and then just jam the optimal from there, like that could win the game changer or whatever it's called, or a 200-person contest, because that lineup is only 2 points, 3 points off the median optimal, and it has like 3 times less ownership. And like from an EV perspective, yeah, you're not going to min cash as often. If your lineup loses, it'll probably come in very bottom or close to the bottom. But if that chalk fails, like you have a good shot at a 50 to 100K payday that slate. And if you're playing 180 slates, it's not like NFL, you're playing 16, 17, 18 slates. You're going to lose 90% of the time, but if you get one or two like top 3 finishes in those contests for Eric, we could go back to October. Like we've mentioned on multiple podcasts about small field versus large field differences. And it's no different in NBA than it is in NFL. I mean, you're stating the same exact thing you do in NFL strategically. Yep. You're doing in NBA. And then when we get to baseball, right? April, May comes around, we'll be talking about, well, everyone's going to play this pitcher, these 2 pitcher combinations. So I'm going to fade that pitcher and I'm going to stack against the SP2. And it's like, do I even know the players' names? No, but that in and of itself, when Pablo Lopez at 6,800 is chalk because there's no value at pitcher, it's like, well, I'm going to play the Reds against him because they're in Cincinnati and it's a home run ballpark. I hope he fails. And like it's DFS is DFS. I know people don't understand it. It's weird to say. I think, would you agree with me that most people that play DFS regularly / casually, so just like the average DFS player, while the game theory of DFS can be complicated for those that are not used to it, like it's not you don't need more than high school math. The concepts that are talked about on this podcast and in the course are not like highly advanced. Right? If you play games, if you played poker, you get it. But do you agree with me that the most average DFS players actually overcomplicate how they play versus what we're talking about? Actually, it sounds more complicated, but actually it's more simplified.
100%. It is the difference between simple and easy, I think, is what people screw up, right? It is actually unbelievably simple.
But very hard. It's simple but hard instead of being complicated and easy. It's kind of weird to say that.
Yep, exactly. That is exactly it. So people screw it up because they're like, I get it, right? I need leverage. I can't play all the chalk. I can't blah, blah, blah. They know like they know all the levers, right? We've gotten to the point now in almost 2021 that if you pay attention even a little bit and play DFS, you know all those levers. But putting those levers into practice, especially with NBA here now, right? NFL, we have a whole week to think about it and play around with teams and listen to other people talk. And you get time to let it, fester over the week and figure out your strategy. NBA, it's like, dude, the slate ends at midnight and you got 16 hours, to figure this shit out. And you're probably going to get 3 bombs dropped on you during that time. And one of those bombs is probably going to come 10 minutes before lock, So like, it's already hard because it's a quick turnaround, and, NBA is a little bit more nuanced, kind of like we talked about at the beginning. It's a little more nuanced than people think. And then you just like, okay, I got 15 minutes to totally figure this whole thing out again now, and that's what happened like yesterday. So you have to be able to, think quick on your feet, but the concept is so unbelievably simple that people definitely overcomplicate it and try to, whether it's get too much leverage, whether it's play way too wild of plays, whatever. But people, that's the hardest part. And I mean, it happens to me too. I do it too. I screw these things up plenty of times. I'll do it. I might do it tonight. I'll do it. It happens. But I think if you understand like the goal, you're just going to get better at practice. And I do think if anybody's trying to play DFS, whether it's you're trying to play NBA or not, seriously, playing NBA will really help you. Playing NBA and MLB will help you the most because it's every single day. You're going to have to continue to make those repetitive decisions every single day. You're going to screw it up plenty, but every single day you got to do it. And there's multiple slates. If you want to play multiple slates, there's turbos and late night slates and all that kind of stuff. And NBA will specifically make you think quick on your feet. MLB does a little bit too with lineups coming out. You might have to change things when you start to see lineups. So you're constantly having to think through all these decisions over and over and over. And I think it's actually like a really good exercise for anybody. Just play the quarter arcade if you don't feel comfortable or whatever. Play. There's plenty of contests out there for anybody. But I do think like continuing to study these slates and figure out, attack how each one, what's the strategy for this one? What's the strategy for this one? NBA is such a great tool for that.
And also the strategies, there could be 100 of them. I mean, that's right. I mean, I study players. You talk about wakey, and you go, okay, he decided on this super leverage. And then I look at Brian Hooper, and I go, well, he kind of played this, but I saw how he managed. He got some double center lineups in that and people weren't playing. And then I look at Dink, and I go, okay, he went heavy on that game, right? He played a lot of 2-1 type of lineups from this game. Okay, I get that. I get those types of lineups, and I chose to do a different thing, but I get those lineups. If I ran them through my projections, the medians of those lineups and the medians of my lineups are not really dramatically off. The ownerships of my lineups and those lineups are not that dramatically off. So the EV of each of them is about the same. And your goal in GPPs is just to build higher EV lineups than your opponents. So the contest that you play. So people talk about your contest, because I also had conversations in the RotoGrinders Discord. There's some people that are transitioning more into the single entry 3 max. The higher dollar stuff, maybe not as high as you play, but the power sweep level, the $100, the $400 type of thing. There's 1,000 people in the field, 800 people in the field, entries in the field, that type of thing. And they go, oh, I've had so much more fun and success because I don't feel like I need to get the really weird guys, because to beat 100,000 people is sometimes you need to find those guys and get those. You don't have to get super leverage. It's I could kind of do what you do, Eric, and just find a 2v2 pivot, get leverage, go flip a construction, and still kind of jam in some of the best plays. And the difference is that in those fields, the opponent level is so much higher. So think if we could put a number on EV on a lineup. So let's say 1.2, which means you stand to gain 20% on that lineup over a course of $1 million. And obviously a lot of that 20% is in win equity, right?
Yes.
A lot of it in GPPs, most of that EV is coming in winning one of the top spots. So a lineup of 1.2 maybe, let's say, the average at your contests.
Right.
But the EV, if we could put a number on it, the EV in the large field could be 0.88, right? So like my 1.12 lineups are plus EV in large field GPPs. Yet if I played that type of lineup in your contest, I'd actually be losing money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like my equity would actually be negative. So only because in those contests people are building better lineups on average. But of course you're only playing against 800 of them, so your probability of winning, just if everything was equal, is going to be higher because I mean it's the same thing as playing poker against, you could play poker against the 9 worst opponents in the world and you don't have to be that good of a poker player, right? You just my nice little 1.12 EV lineup in a contest of 10 people that are building lineups with Kyrie Irving, and it's still like I don't. That's all I need. I just have to be better than average plus the rake. But in the small field stuff, it's like when you compete, especially in like the multi-entry, like the mid stakes, 68 max or whatever it is, sometimes 16 max and like the whatever. Like those 16 lineups are all going to be high equity lineups. Like the 16 that Chipotle's putting in is going to be high equity. Like you're not getting you're not getting the onesies and twosies from some Joe Schmo on the couch. Mostly, you're getting quality lineups, which means the min cash line goes up. The winning score goes down because there's only 800 people in the contest. So when the 1% owned player, puts up 50 points in your contest, Eric, a lot of times you're not even sweating it. You're like you'll check the first place lineup and go, did anyone happen to play that guy? And it's quite possible that because he's 1% owned in the large field GPP, he could be like only in 2 out of 800 lineups in your contest. And if you missed on any other player in that lineup, like it didn't matter that you got that guy because you ain't winning first with it. So you're not sweating. I do the same thing in soccer. Like I'll play the small field 100-man, 130-man GPPs, and some center back, some $2,600 center back for an underdog team, that in the 4,000 person contest, there's going to be someone with him. And goals matter so much in scoring for soccer because you could win a GPP with 100 points. So like 12 points matters a lot. So a lot of times in the 130-man contest, like that dude is literally unowned. Like it's like that, like it's not like one guy, like no one does. So it's like, in order to win the large field, you're probably going to need that guy, but in the small field you don't. So it's not a matter of the field size. That's why I know I'm accepting high variance playing large field contests, but I still believe that EV-wise, over a long period of time, I make more money off of playing against the worst opponents that I could find versus trying to leverage against the best opponents, which you could still make money that way. But it's not one of those things where I'm only going to play a single entry, 3 entry max. It's not better. Like there's no, like people ask me what's the best contest to play. Like there's no answer to that. There's no answer to that question. Like in general, find the weakest opponents you possibly can. Like that, you can never go wrong by just finding someone that's worse than you at this game. If you could play them head to head for $1,000 a day, like I wouldn't even bother playing any of the other contests. I just play the guy that plugs in injured players like that's what you're looking for. So just understand that in large field contests, you do get dumber opponents. But also the variance, the EV, to realize that EV, it's going to come at like all at once twice a year versus in smaller field contests where you have more of a shot at coming in 8th and getting a nice, 7x on your money, or coming in 4th and getting a 25x on your money. Like you may see a lot more of those results, but you're going to have to work a lot harder at it because you're playing against, if you're going to do that not being a good DFS player, you're probably not going to even get those spots because you're just going to get crushed by so many other good lineups. Your lineup's going to be so poorly projected and so improperly leveraged that, if you win, it's luck. Most likely you're just going to bleed money over time.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, like Alan Lem from Roto Grinders wrote, like the mental side of things. There's also a really big mental aspect to, to all of DFS, obviously, but So like opening, not actual opening night, but first big slate. So what was that, Wednesday or whatever it was of NBA this year? I had some tickets that I had won. So I multi. I think I played 10 or 20. I don't know. Anyway, shows you how much I pay attention when I play multiple teams. I don't even know how many I played, but like 20. I played like 20 teams or something in like the smaller field stuff. I also just wanted to have a little more fun on the first night. There were so many good plays. I'm like, I want to have a little more fun. I don't want to be just all in on one lineup on the first night. So I played like 20. I think I cashed like 14 of them or something like that. And like, like the 20 max and like the mill where they had the milli or whatever it was on opening night. And I didn't cash anything. And like even my now I didn't have my best teams in the higher stake stuff, but I didn't cash the higher stake stuff. I was like close, but like it's just goes to show, if you can become a decent enough player. I'm not saying all my teams were like super plus EV, but if you can become a decent enough player, like I can stomach, barely eking out a profit on a night when I just played okay. But in the smaller field against those best players, there's no room for just being okay on a given night, because everybody's going to be at least okay. You being okay against the best players in the world means you lose that night. So you have to be but that should create a certain mindset you have to play in those contests. And it is, I approach we've talked about this too, right? A lot of the same concepts we'll keep reiterating, but you have to go into every slate like, yep, more than willing to lose tonight, which sounds funny, right? Like I don't want to lose, but like I go in, same thing last night. Like, dude, I'm fading James Harden with a bunch of G League players around him. You know what I mean? Christian, and those guys were on pace to play like 40 minutes. It got to halftime of that game. Like I had already lost, but I was just like, Jesus, I am going to finish in last. Like Harden's playing 20, like these guys are going to play 40 something minutes in the second game of the season. I'm like, what is going on here? But like, you have to be willing. Like, sometimes you just get wrong, right? Like get it wrong, like I played John, he got hurt. So it was like easier to get over, it's like, I wasn't going to win because I had an injured guy, scored 9 points or whatever. But like, even if he played, I probably don't win anything, but it's like, you have to be okay with that. Like, and that can be mentally taxing because there's going to be stretches where it happens for weeks.
Right. And especially
like,
it's to me, it's less mentally taxing in NBA and MLB because you're playing every day. So it's like, it's easy to get over like, okay, I sucked, I fucked up. Even if it's you made mistakes and be like, I shouldn't have done that. But like you wake up in the morning and go up, dude, it's like people have to treat DFS slates like poker hands. Like you just play a lot of poker hands. Like no poker player like, oh, I'm gonna shove all in, get called up. It looks like I was wrong. Like you're gonna get a hand. You're gonna get another hand. You buy in for 300 and you get another. I mean, like, and you're tracking your results over a season, over a year, over 4 years. I mean, like, I don't even want to call it a year. Like a year is even an arbitrary period, right? And like 5 years is not even. I mean, like you could be profitable over 5 years and still not even be a good player. Or you could be unprofitable and still be a great player. I mean, the variance in this is so massive that I find it easier to get over in the daily sports. But you have to the thing that you have to control against is the downward spiral. The downward spiral of like you lost 2, 3, 4, 5 slates in a row, 10 slates in a row, 15 slates. People. I got a DM the other day. I've lost 3 slates in a row. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Like, Jesus Christ, 3 slates in a row? I've lost 3 weeks in a row. In a daily sport, I've lost 21 slates in a row playing GPPs. If you lost 21 slates in a row playing cash games, maybe you're not. The likelihood of you being a good cash player is a little bit lower. But in GPPs, 21 days in a row, I've done that before. Like that's normal. That's a normal thing to happen. But the downward spiral is, it gets to that point where you're like, is my process right? And did the game pass me by? Did I not involve? Like, am I doing something fundamentally wrong? And then a lot of times the mistake is changing. Like, it's kind of weird to say that you should always be looking at your process. You should always be studying good players, not winning lineups, good players. So to not change ever is obviously wrong. But if you're looking at your process and you're studying good players and you're doing similar things that you've always done, if the sharper players are doing similar things that you're doing and you have a 21-day losing streak, like it's quite possible that you're not doing anything wrong at all. Like and actually by actively changing, like you're actually hurting yourself. Now I'm not talking about the dumb shit that you hear from fucking stupid people of like, well, I've lost 4 days in a row. I got to win the next day. I'm going to double down because I got to like that type of shit. Or you always hear this. I can never get this guy right. Like that doesn't mean anything. Or Auto X. He's on my never play again. Like those things are stupid. Like they don't matter. Like don't. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about you've lost for 3 weeks straight, and you're like, am I building too much leverage in my lineups? Am I fading too much? Am I fading too much chalk? Am I eating too much chalk? But I'm not thinking on a day-to-day basis of, well, the chalk failed yesterday. It's going to fail again. I'm not going to play the chalk today. Oh, the chalk's failed 3 days in a row. Like, Josh Jackson's chalk. I'm not going to fall for that again. Like, you have to, it's just like a poker hand. The last poker hand has no bearing on what card's going to come up in this hand. Like, Josh Jackson didn't know he was chalk yesterday. Like, he didn't know. And the guy that's going to be chalk tonight doesn't know that Josh Jackson was chalk yesterday. Like, there's no correlation to any of that, right? It's just like the 5 reds on a roulette wheel. It's still going to be the same percentage chance of it coming black or red. So, like, I hope people that are listening and watching on YouTube, and if you're watching, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel. I hope people that listen to this show at least are smarter people that don't fall into those gambler fallacies. But you can fall into the fallacy of thinking that you could play plus EV lineups and still lose, and then you get to a certain point where you start questioning whether or not you're playing plus EV lineups, and maybe you're not doing anything wrong.
And it is the hardest part is there's no way to really figure out. You know, Osimo posted on this is maybe a month ago, 2 months ago on Twitter, like this guy's ever run bad. Like this guy just prints money. But he posted, how do you know if you're playing bad or running bad? And like I'm sure I've thought about that, but until he posted it, I didn't like really think that deeply about it. And like, yeah, I don't like actively study my own lineups because like I know what they were and I see the ownerships and all that kind of stuff. But if I am having a bad stretch, I will think about those decisions. But it's also then like we're all human, and you do start to second guess yourselves, right? After a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of losing, whatever, like you do start to like it's not the easiest thing ever to just put away all the emotional side of things, right? We're not fucking robots. Like you just saw a lot of money leave your account for extended stretch, and every night you get excited at lock. Yep, tonight's the night we're going to turn it around, and then 4 hours later, nope, zeros, and you're currently winning. Whatever. Everybody goes through that, and so there's no there's no really easy way. Like you can study your lineups and study other good players' lineups. That's the best way to do it. But there's still no, like you said, there's on any given slate, like shit, even last night's 5-game NBA slate, there's countless strategies that if you did them, whether I did them or not, they're probably good. Like we talked about how many of them, on a 5-game NBA slate. So think about tonight, there's however many games, or an NFL slate with 13 games, there's tons of different strategies. So it's really difficult to understand, like, am I playing bad, so I do need to adjust, or am I running bad? And you have to be able to do it with a very clean mind and a clean mindset. Another Osimo site shout out, my buddy. He's a good friend, and he's an asshole on Twitter, but he's a really sharp guy. And Adam Scherer had tweeted not that long ago. I know personally that he has gone through some ups and downs and shared them on Twitter. And he has specifically, like, so this is, in my opinion, Adam's like one of the best players that exists in DFS. And he talks about, he went through a prolonged losing stretch, and he was like way over tweaking his process. He was MMEing at the time, so playing 150 max, and he had started out really successful. and then, had small losing stretches and started tweaking things, tweaking the way he made his projections, tweaking, how he did his exposures, tweaking how he did his correlations, tweaking all these little things day to day. And the next thing you know, 2 weeks later, you've tweaked so much shit, you don't even know what you have. You don't even know what your process is because you're changing things to try to recover from your losses. And he's like, I finally just stopped and realized, like, dude, take a step back. You were just, you were fine. Maybe you needed a couple of small tweaks, but it's just the nature of the beast. You're just going to lose. So even the best players in the world, can sometimes struggle to deal with that. And I do think, NBA has started. So it's easy to go on really down stretches in a daily sport, and a daily sport like NBA, if you're playing the right way, because it's so easy to lose, right? Like we talk about, the projections are so strong, and there's less, there's still a lot more variance than people think, but there's less variance on a night to night, over a large sample in NBA. So you can go long stretches where you can be making great leverage plays and great tournament lineups, and you're just getting buried, right? Because James Harden, you made that James Harden leverage point, and it was a great plus EV lineup, but James Harden went for 85, and you lose, or you fade Karis LeVert. It's a really highly leveraged lineup. It's got great win equity. He goes for 60, and you just lose, and that can happen at night after night after night after night, and so I think it's important to just kind of, everybody goes through that, but you have to be able to kind of manage that and go back to battle the next day and make the right decisions. And that's definitely the hardest part, I think, of the daily sports, once you get kind of the core competencies down.
Right. Well, that's why I talk about when I get into those streaks and I'm refining my process. To me, it's more about simplification over complication. It's more about, am I doing things too complex? Most of the time, if it's very similar to poker, where sometimes you want to bank a small win just for your mental sake, right? It's like, okay, I'm just gonna sit down. I'm not gonna try to capture every small edge I possibly can at the table. I'm just gonna sit, play good cards, play them aggressively, value bet, the very simplest of poker, not much deception, just whatever, and just okay, and then start ramping up from there. Once yes, I got paid off on that bet, I folded the right hand there, that type of stuff. So a lot of times in a daily sport, it will come down to, today I'm not going to play 60 lineups. I'm going to hand build. I'm going to play a higher stakes contest. I'm going to hand build 3. Right? I'm going to hand build 3 for the $100 single entry, the $40 single entry, and maybe I play 3 lineups into the $33 or whatever the hell it is. And I know it's a 12-game slate. I could make tons of lineups, but it's no, I'm going to focus on building 3 to 5, and I'm still going to do the same research process, still use the lineup optimizer and everything like that. But it's I need to refine what are the 5 best strategies for these lineups. What am I going to, and then go from there. And maybe I min cash, and maybe okay, I made them. It's much more easy to see your process when it's simplified than when it's complicated. So I view it from that perspective. I've done that for showdowns the past couple of weeks for NFL. Instead of doing all this duplication processing and all that type of stuff, and putting in $600, $800, and then getting back 100. Or I had one slate, I did 3x. I didn't have the nut lineup, but I had the third nut lineup. But of course, the nut lineup's duplicated, 17 times. So right. It's not like you get paid much. And then with NBA starting up and everything, it's dude, I don't want to do that anymore. I've bled money in Showdown. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to play 3 lineups in the 180, and that's it. And I'm just going to go, what's my direction? It's I'm going Diggs and the captain, Allen, and then I'm I look at Slate IQ, I'm building a 5-1 lineup with a wide receiver 1, and it's a 2,100 entry contest. So now my I don't have to, the duplication processing, I don't have to, if it's duped 3-4 times, that's not the end of the world, right? In the large field contest, I'd look at that lineup and go, that's just going to be duped 50 times. I don't want to play it. And then I'm spending an hour doing that shit, right? But now it's okay, now I could just relax and go, well, I'm going to play Singletary in the captain spot. Well, that didn't work out. But I played $600 worth of lineups in the last showdown. I got $605 back. Right? But it's like I look at my lineups and like, no, I was happy. No matter what happened, I was happy with my lineups. I simplified my process. I said, I'm going to go for this one outcome. And if the Patriots win the game, then fuck it, I lose. That's fine. But I'm not dealing with, well, I'm building 5 lineups for this outcome, 7 lineups for that outcome. I'm leveraging here. I'm doing that there. I'm like when you're doing so many things at once, like you may not be sure that if any of your fundamental things from the beginning of each outcome process you're doing for each lineup is somehow flawed, you're now fucking up so many lineups doing that.
Yeah.
That if worst case scenario, I'm fucking up 3 lineups. They're like
Right.
and I could see it more clearly. I studied players the next day, and I go, okay, they kind of built similarly. Okay, and then you start ramping up your complication in your process. So I think so many DFS players, average ones, like they think either they make it too complicated or they think it's too like they're like, well, I just do this, and should I be doing more? And like a lot of times you should be doing less. Actually, what you think is too little is actually not. You should be doing less than that, even less than that.
Yep.
Right? When people think it's nuts, where they're like, well, so when do you start researching an NBA DFS slate? I'm like, what do you consider research? Like I have projections, and I'm looking at news, and I may run some 300 lineups just to see some constructions and stuff. But it's like people are asking me like, oh, so you're playing this at 11 in the morning? You gonna be playing this guy? It's like, dude, I don't even know I'm playing till an hour before lock. I don't build fucking lineups until an hour before lock. Like, so what are you doing the rest of the day? It's like, well, I make a podcast, I go have lunch, I take a look at projections, I'm playing a soccer slate at 1 in the. I mean, like, I'm doing other shit. Like, like I want to simplify. I want to outsource the stuff that I'm not good at. Right? That's what the projections are for. And then I want to simplify my process as possible. It's like, okay, where am I getting leverage? There. Done. Who's under owned for their smash percentage? Done. Who's like I could start, and then it's like, okay, here's my pool of players. Who's negatively correlated to one another? Go into build rules, build my groups. This guy and this guy, not in the same lineup. If I'm going to play this guy, make sure to play the other guy on the other side. And I'm making 10, 20, 30 groups like that. Then once that's done, it's like, I got 60 lineups to make. Let's go to work. Right? And then then it's done. And then, like, to me, that's the simplified process. Like, if your process is something where you have to look at stuff at noon for a 7 p.m. slate, like, it's NBA DFS. Like, it's going to be there for you. You could get home from work at 6 o'clock, sit down in a half an hour. If you're building 5 lineups, like, you don't even have to. You're not diversification. You're not dealing with all that I have to deal with. If you're building 3-5 lineups, 1 lineup, like, dude, how much more time do you need? All the news that happened at 2, you don't have to know about it 2. You just have to know about it at 6:59. That's all you have to you'll know everything at that point anyway. And then the plan for the late swaps, all that type of stuff. It'll be there. You don't have to be glued to your phone all the time. After lock you do. But before lock, it's like it's all going to be there. It's not running. The projections aren't running away from you, right? Oh, news happened. Oh, what should I be looking at? Court IQ. Dude, just wait like 5 or 10 minutes. The projections that you use will just be updated. Just wait. If you're using labs like fucking Justin, will fucking have it done. Don't worry about it, right? That's what you're outsourcing for. If you're using your own model, sure, yeah, then you have to start doing a lot of that stuff. But a lot of people out there, they subscribe to other people's models. Like it'll be taken care of already. Don't fucking stress out. People stress out too much.
You're also, like we talked about, like the mental side of things and managing, especially a daily sport like this. Like, as much as anyone, I love to like look at NBA stuff and look at DFS, NBA DFS slates. I just love breaking it down and analyzing it. But you will burn the fuck out so fast if you're grinding these NBA slates and studying them all day, every day, because they are literally every day for months. And we have others, like if you like to play other sports, or if you're sports betting, right? You're in a legal state or illegal state, and you're betting on sports, and your mind is just wrapped up in all this shit for 24 hours a day. You're going to break down eventually. So like what I like to do, and I grind it probably harder than other people do, because I just like tinkering around and looking at different things. But like, I'll do like you do and put a dummy in place. And then like when I get downtime throughout the day, or like if I see news, right? So like there was some news while we were here recording this podcast. And when we're done, I'll kind of go take a look, right? And look at how minutes break down based on someone sitting, and just take a few minutes and then tinker around, right? Maybe look at ownership. Maybe ownership has updated. Just kind of see, but like just soak things in throughout the day. Maybe tinker around here or there. Oh, okay, I can do this, and then you just store that in the back of your mind, right? Like, oh, so and so's out, so I can make that swap. Now maybe let's look at ownership, and just kind of like I kind of like freelance it a little bit, just kind of throughout the day, and then like you said, we get an hour before lock or half hour before lock or whatever your time frame is. I don't need that much time with one team. I do have to. I saw you tweet about it, but registering for contests, goddamn, playing cash games and stuff, like that's what'll stop me from playing cash games, is having to register all these goddamn.
I'm playing on 3 sites now. Jesus Christ, because I also do it to myself, because like DK, I'm like restricted. FanDuel, yeah. I don't play that much. I've never played that much volume on there. So like,
right.
So like to me, I'm so much of an EV nit that like, well, why am I playing the $5 50/50s when I could play the $2 and $1 50/50s that all the experienced players are at? But of course, I'm trying to get like $800 to $1,000 of volume there. So you know how many $1 and $2? I have to wait for them to respawn. I have to go to head-to-heads. I mean, like, just every time I take a shit, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm spending the next 3 minutes going this contest, that contest, this contest, this contest, that contest. Like every time I take a break, I gotta, because yes, I could do the $10 and $25 double ups and all that type of stuff and get $800 worth of volume, but I want to play against the weakest opponents. Like I'm an EV nit. There's no reason not to.
I always find that yes, it's so brutal to enter the contest, especially on FanDuel, because you have to click, you have to go to like multiple screens. Like you said, you're sitting on the shitter and you're going through and doing $1, $50/50, $2 50/50, whatever. Like by the end, I run out of patience, and I'm like, fuck this, $25, $50, $100, whatever, because I'm like, I can't I can't do this anymore. So like I end up like losing out on tons of EV because I'm way too impatient entering these contests. So that's what, more than losing money, I could start losing every day in cash games on FanDuel. More than losing money, that will be what puts an end to me playing cash games, is having to register contests for a fucking hour every single day.
An hour? It's like 5 minutes every hour, every hour.
Yeah.
Because then you're also thinking in the back of your mind, it's like, well, if I'm planning on allocating $800 of volume, should I be regging like pre-night? I want to reg as close to lock as possible. So it's like, so now I have 600 in volume, but I'm leaving 200 left for the last like hour and a half. So now I have to plan my day. I have to plan my day around it. Right, I have to like,
which is even worse. That's even worse than it being time consuming, is that it restricts you from doing other shit.
Right, like after this show, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go. I missed so many 100-mans on 100-man 50/50s on FanDuel. I'm going to have to start making it up for today's. Right, I'm way behind on volume. I have to go to Yahoo now. At least on Yahoo on the desktop, you could bulk enter, so you can start using those check boxes. DraftKings doesn't post as many. I can be more selective. I'm trying to spread out as much as, I mean, like I have a set amount. I mean, that's the whole point of my spreadsheet. It's like I'm playing around 10%, and that's what it. So I have to strategize of how I'm going to allocate that, rather than I could just play a $2,000 head-to-head. Like that's not a way to diversify your your exposure to your risk. So no, I want to spread out as much as possible. So for this podcast, I know people are like, well, we didn't talk about fucking football because maybe, just maybe, we're just fucking sick of football.
Dude, we're 16 weeks in. Like it hasn't been that. I know you had
I'll let you talk in a second. I know people always like I never let you talk. Next week I'm going to talk since it's going to be the new year. I always transparently show my results. So I'm going to talk a lot about that next week, and you could also, although it's not required. That it feels like a bad NFL season for me, even though I was profitable. Because, I mean, essentially, if it wasn't for that one bink, it would be an awful season.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's how, like, I didn't have that. I had a couple of weeks. I actually don't think, I was thinking about that this morning too, was like last year I had my best NFL season ever. But it was really 2 weeks. I won GPPs in 2 weeks, and then the third week was like close, but it was the stupid week they run like the $1,000 Millie Maker, and then they don't have any of the other high stakes contests. So I got like 8th in that, but like in a normal week that would have like shipped everything. Anyway, I shouldn't be complaining.
You're still tilting over that?
I'm still fucking tilting over that. That's multiple 6 figures of EV I lost because DraftKings is
running multiple dollars you lost. You didn't lose any Sklansky bucks. Like, that's the whole point, right? You lost actual money.
Yes. Yeah. Real money, because DraftKings is assholes every like few weeks of the year. Their contests suck. Anyway, no, I'm not. Like I said, shouldn't complain. But yes, I'm still tilting that. But I was thinking back, and it's like, you just remember, like, when you run good, you're like, oh yeah, it's such an awesome season last year. Oh, I must have played so much better. And I look back and like, I had this year probably the same amount of weeks where I was live. Like, I had sweats and I was live to take something down, 3 or 4. Like, I played really, I played well for the majority of the year, I think, with some mistakes. And then I had a couple of live weeks, but it just didn't, sometimes that last touchdown doesn't bounce your way and you finish 5th, right? Which is a great week. Like, oh, $5,000 or whatever. That's great. But compare that to the year before, when the ball does bounce your way, $200,000. That's a big freaking swing, but you really didn't play any different. And so I was thinking about that this morning, because I was like, man, it's been a kind of a shitty NFL season. I'm so ready for it to be over, and NBA has been exciting that it's back. But I do think, taking a step back, kind of some of the stuff we're talking about, it's difficult to see the difference between when you're running bad and playing bad. But I was looking at it a little deeper this morning, and it's just funny when you think maybe you're playing worse than you are, but really you just didn't quite get, if a ball, it was like in week 2, I was like, had my best week this year. If a ball bounces a different way and I win 250,000, I'm not like sitting here saying, oh, what a shitty NFL season. No, I'm saying, what an awesome NFL season. But, just those little things that are such a big difference, that the human brain sometimes convinces you, things that aren't true.
So if you have any questions for either of us, the questions email is always open. Questions@theoryofdfs.com. There are still some in the queue. I know some people sending questions like some of them 3 or 4 weeks back that are more likely to be covered in depth versus a response. Like, we can't fit it in. It's not the type of thing that we could talk about an hour on. So don't worry. I see them. Feel free to send in your questions. Questions@theoryofdfs.com. Feel free to rate and review the podcast on iTunes, and get the Theory of Daily Fantasy Sports course, the 15-hour audio DFS masterclass at theoryofdfs.com. So we'll be talking a lot about NBA coming weeks and whatever. I mean, it's DFS, so maybe it's something interesting happened in MMA. Maybe it's PGA. Maybe it's strategy in general. So Erik, at Erik Beimfohr on Twitter. I'm Jordan Cooper at BlenderHead, BlenderHD on Twitter. This has been another episode of the Theory of DFS podcast.